You know, when you're talking about long-term planning and retirement, so many things come into play, and the number one thing that we do when we sit down with potential clients is to really sit down and go over what their goals are. You have to know what a person wants or needs. For example, when would you like to retire? Perhaps you don't want to retire. You want to keep working as long as you physically can. Maybe you want to just work part-time. There are so many things. Maybe now is when you really start traveling post-retirement. Maybe there's some things you'd like to do with the family, with the grandkids. There are just so many things. Hopefully you have goals. Hopefully it's not just, I'll work until I die. And that's not really a goal. But, I do understand for most of us, especially for entrepreneurs, working is a good thing. That, retiring and sitting on a rocking chair is probably not a good idea for this group and this type of person. But working on your terms is a better thing. So if you have to work to pay the bills and you have to work very hard to do that, you may not be able to do that when you're 80. You may be able to do it just fine when you're 65. So you have to plan. One of the things that we do is we're a big fan of a book called Paychecks and Playchecks by Tom Hegna. If you have not read it, I highly recommend you do. He's one of the smartest financial guys in the industry that I know. Again, that's Paychecks and Playchecks by Tom Hegna, Hegna. He's a fan of the market. He's a fan of a lot of products, but what he's a bigger fan of is you doing the right thing for you. For example, if you're 35 or 40 years old and you go to a financial planner, what's generally the first thing they'll ask you after they get to know you? Is what is your risk tolerance, right? And so you do a risk assessment because of suitability. Okay? The problem, and that's fine, that's all good for a 35-year-old. But if you're 65, in my opinion, anybody over 50, I think they're asking the wrong question. I don't think they should be asking what's your risk tolerance. I think they should be asking you what's your loss tolerance. Because risk is one thing, but losing what you've just spent 30 or 40 years making, hopefully to use or utilize in retirement, is everything. So you really have to come to grips with that, because if you're honest and you're investing in real estate or you're investing in stocks, whatever, those are all fine investments and can be home runs. But the risk level is still there. If the market crashes, it doesn't matter if you have blue chip stocks. If as they say, a rising tide raises all boats. Well, a sinking tide lowers all boats. And if one day you're in retirement, you're 70 years old, you're taking income, and your money is virtually all in the market, in safe mutual funds, let's say, and the market crashes, which it will, because it's cyclic. It does. Right now we're on a cycle of, on an average of 2 major corrections about every 10 years. It can be worse, it can be a little better, but it's a certainty. The market does this and the market does that. It goes up, it goes down. When it goes down, it's going to bring all investments down with it that are in the market. And it may take 5 or 6 or 7 years, like it did for 2008's crash, to bounce back. The problem is, you're now in income mode. You're now in retirement mode. What are you going to do? Generally, do people get you out of the market once they get you in the market? Now again, I'm not against market investments. I'm just against market losses when I can't afford them. So again, you have to go back to what is your loss tolerance? And it's a timing issue. It is amazing how many people we have come into our office off our Social Security seminars who have their entire life savings still at risk. And they may be 66 years old. And their first goal is, I'd like to retire tomorrow. But what if they're really healthy? What if they live to 96? You know, by the time you get to 66 and you're healthy, the odds of you living well into your 90s are very high, because you've bypassed a lot of what brings that age curve down. So you have to literally plan, what if I do live to 96 and I can't, and I've long since not been able to work. Like, my daughter is going into speech pathology, and she talks about, you know, when people have strokes and whatnot, they can't work, obviously. They may even have to relearn how to talk, and they maybe have to dropped into a nursing home or assisted living. All of those things none of us want to think about or talk about, and you have to, you know, consider what would happen if. Because the odds are pretty high that something will happen to you and you can't keep working. Those odds are pretty high for both men and women. So that's one of the reasons why we do Social Security seminars. Because the next level of questioning that we want to go into is, okay, risk is okay on some level for some of your money. So what percentage of certainty do you want to place on your income future? So how much of it do you want certain? So we want to make certain whatever our, for example, pension choices are if we get a pension. Thank you. We want to make certain our Social Security. Hopefully it'll still be there. Of course, there's nothing absolutely certain. But maximizing your Social Security is a really big part of that. As I said to you guys before, there's 567 ways to take Social Security for a couple, 9 ways for a single person. The way you take Social Security can make the difference of several $100,000 in a lifetime. So it's significant. So basically, I mentioned that one client that we're working with. There's some bonds involved. They have some stocks. Actually, the gal is 45 years old. The guy is 68 years old. They have 2 different, very unique needs. She's 45. He's 68. What are the odds of her outliving him by maybe a large margin? So we actually have some life insurance on her that will produce in 20 years some tax-free income. Can't put it on him, he's too old, etc., etc. So there's a whole plan. Now again, I just want to impress upon you, whether you have $50,000, $500,000, or $5 million, you still need a plan, and you want that money to last as best as it can and work for you. And we can help you. Any questions? All right. I think I'm done. Oh.
So, you know, before people used to talk about, like, you know, it was a mixture of bonds and common stock. And,
yeah.
And now people aren't saying that because the bond market's in the tank. So, is there like a new formula that you apply, or is it rule of thumb?
Well, it would go back, Sean, to your loss tolerance and your age. And then also, how much of your money do you want to make certain? How much of your income do you want certain? Because common stocks are very uncertain. And when the market crashes, if you're in income mode, see, it's one thing if you're 45, it's another if you're 70 and you're taking income. Because you could be taking income on $500,000 of stock, and the market in one day, that stock could be worth $250,000. But you still need that income because that's part of your budget. Very, very few retired people can just shut off the income spigot and say, okay, I'll just wait for 5 years until it bounces back. It doesn't work that way, unless you're significantly wealthy. But the formula is really based on risk tolerance, loss tolerance, certainty. So, and age is the biggest issue.
Mine is a question more of what Ron did for Tony and I. Because of our age group, we were not willing to sacrifice and keep our money into the market and take the chance of losing it. We had already done that once, and we lost everything, and we weren't willing to do it a second time. So when the money came in and it started building, a substantial amount, we took it out of the bond market and out of the market period, and we put it into annuities that he set up for us. And now Tony and I don't have to worry about that because now we have income coming that supplements our Social Security.
Yeah.
Produce less.
It-
And that's what it's all about. It's the fact that we are secure. We feel safe. We don't have an issue.
Yeah, and it's a stage of life. It's a stage of life issue. You know, Tony's 70,
He's going to be 79.
he's 79. Yeah. Thank you.